Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really challenging but absolutely essential concept from the philosopher Akil Mbembe, and he forces us to confront one of the most fundamental and frankly unsettling questions about power.
So let's just start with that question, right there. It gets to the very heart of what we call sovereignty. You know, the ultimate authority of a state. We usually think of sovereignty as, I don't know, making laws, controlling borders. But what's its most extreme, its most absolute expression?
To really get what Mbembe is arguing, we actually have to take a quick step back and look at a key concept from another major thinker, Michel Foucault. He really changed the game in how we see modern states working.
You see, Foucault's big idea was that modern power isn't just about a king threatening you with a sword anymore. It's way more subtle than that. It's all about managing life on a huge scale. Think about public health systems, the census, urban planning. All of these things are tools of what he called biopower. It's a power that's designed to make populations productive, healthy, and, well, controlled.
Okay, but here's the thing. Does that idea, managing and fostering life, does it really explain the brutal ways that states can decide entire groups of people are disposable? Does it explain the violence of colonialism or the logic behind a modern military occupation? Akil Mbembe says, not quite. He thinks we need a different lens.
And this is where we get to Mbembe's powerful and, honestly, pretty disturbing idea for understanding how sovereignty works in our world.
And here it is. This is the crucial point. For Mbembe, the ultimate power of a state isn't just about managing life. It's the raw, fundamental power to decide who is disposable, who can be killed without any real consequence. That, he says, is the ultimate form of control.
He gave this a name, Necropolitics. It literally means the politics of death. But it's not just about the act of killing. It's about creating what he calls death worlds. These zones or conditions where people are subjected to a kind of living death, whether that's social or literal.
So when you put them side by side, the difference is just crystal clear. Foucault's biopower has this logic of make live and let die. It's about nurturing the life of some populations while kind of just letting others fall by the wayside. But necropower is so much more direct, so much more brutal. Its logic is to actively dictate who may live and who must die. It's about drawing a line and explicitly defining certain people as killable.
So where did this kind of power even come from? Well, Mbembe argues that necropower is nothing new. It was actually developed and perfected in very specific historical places that he calls topographies of cruelty.
The first and maybe most brutal example he gives is the slave plantation. He argues that this was one of the very first and most totalizing experiments in creating a death world, a place where human beings were systematically turned into things. I mean, just think about what the slave experienced. Mbembe calls it a triple loss. You lose your home, you lose any rights over your own body, and you lose your political status. The result is what he calls a social death. You're kept physically alive, yeah, but only as a tool for labor. It's a kind of death in life, where you're treated as an object to be used, injured, and thrown away at will.
Okay, so the second key historical site where this power was really fine-tuned is the colony. And the colony is defined by its relationship to the law, or maybe its existence completely outside of it.
The colony was what you could call a zone of exception, a space where the normal rules just didn't apply. The colonizers often saw the native people not as human beings, but as savages, almost part of the landscape. And what that meant was that the sovereign's power to kill was absolute. There were no rules, no restraint, and it was all done in the name of civilization.
So you might be asking, why does all this history matter now? Well, because Mbembe takes this exact same lens and applies it to understand what's happening in our world today, specifically with modern forms of occupation.
He uses the occupation of Palestine as his main contemporary case study, and he describes it as a splintering occupation. And it works in 3 dimensions. It's not just about controlling land on a map. It's about fragmenting that land into isolated cells. It's about controlling the airspace above and the ground below. And it's about waging war on the very infrastructure that makes life possible.
And this isn't what we think of as traditional war. This infrastructural warfare is a key tactic of necropower. It's the systematic dismantling of an enemy's ability to just live a normal life. It's a way of controlling a whole population by making their day-to-day existence constantly unstable and insecure.
So this brings us to the most extreme result of necropolitics. It's a situation where 2 terrifyingly different logics of violence just slam into each other.
On one side, you've got the logic of survival. The goal here is simple: to outlive your enemy, to be the one left standing. Power comes from killing while keeping your own death at a distance. But on the other side, you have the logic of martyrdom, where the ultimate act of resistance is to fuse your own death with the death of the enemy.
And in this terrible framework, the body is no longer something you're trying to protect. It becomes the weapon itself. This is the extreme logic of the suicide bomber, for example, where death gets reframed. It's seen not as a failure, but as a final, desperate path to freedom from an existence that has been made completely unlivable.
And so this is the provocative and deeply unsettling place that Mbembe leaves us. He forces us to ask, when a state has the ultimate power of death, what happens to our definitions of things like resistance, suicide, and freedom? The lines start to blur, and it's a question that really reshapes everything we think we know about the struggle for life itself.